Infamous monster hunter Sir Duncross, along with his faithful scribe Father McKellen, are hired to hunt down the monster of Shore Tower Island. But once they get there may be more to the island than initially there appears to be. And when the wrath of an ancient god is unleashed, our heroes might find they go from being the hunter to the hunted. This is Crimson Fall, the Shore Tower. Hello there, Geek Collective, and welcome to Geeks Plus Comics, more than just your average geek. And we are back with another comic review for you. This week I am checking out Crimson Fall, the Shore Tower, a self-published comic from Laufman that was funded through Kickstarter. And just like our review of the Hallowed that we done a couple of weeks ago, this one is another one that I backed at the end of 2024. If you missed our review on the Hallowed, I'll go ahead and stick a little card up in the corner for that. You can go check it out and see what we thought of that one. But this is another one that we backed on Kickstarter. This is actually one that Nitro had found, and he had made me aware of it, so I went, checked it out. It looked pretty interesting, so I went and signed up for it, and it officially arrived. So massive shout out to Nitro for putting this one on my radar. Super excited to be checking it out today. According to the Kickstarter page, it refers to the comic as a combination of Hellboy meets The Witcher, which is absolutely something that's up my alley. I love The Witcher. On Twitch we played The Witcher 3, I did my first playthrough there on Twitch a couple of years ago. Absolutely love that. Adore Hellboy stuff, you know, hunting down monsters, taking on evil entities, so this is something that's right up my alley. And it's also described in its genre as a dark fantasy horror. Sounds a little familiar to one that we just covered in The Hallowed. I'm starting to see a little bit of a reoccurring interest in the comics that I've been picking up lately. If you've been in the channel for a while, you know I do love horror comics. I think they're an amazing genre, so I couldn't say no to this one, so I had to check it out. So let me just grab the numbers for this because I want to make sure I get them right. I wrote them down. So on the Kickstarter, it was officially attempting to raise 5,000 Canadian dollars, and it managed to raise $96,897 Canadian, which when I converted it turns out to be around $67,074.60 US, which is pretty phenomenal. Obviously there was a lot of interest in this, there was a lot of people wanting to check it out, so we have to see what it's all about, right? So Crimson Fall also as well is the second in the series of the Crimson Fall books that follow the protagonists Sir Duncross and Father McKellen. I have not read the first story. I did not know there was a first story when I backed this, so I'm going into this book completely blind. So let's jump in and see just what it has in store for us. Before we do that though, do all the usual YouTubey stuff. Go down there, hit that like button if you're enjoying the content here at Geeks Plus Comics. Also as well, leave us a comment down below and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the amazing content we have got coming your way. But let's dive on in to Crimson Fall. Crimson Fall, the Shore Tower is created, written and drawn by Laufman, with flats being provided by Shawn Zinter. Our story begins in the city of Hammerwind. The services of Sir Duncross and his associate Father McKellen had been requested by the Lord of Hammerwind, Lord Finlay. Lord Finlay and Sir Duncross knew each other many years ago in the Mercenary Guild, and now Sir Duncross is known as a slayer of monsters, with Father McKellen documenting his exploits. Lord Finlay wishes for them to kill a monster at Shore Tower Island, the home of a lighthouse that is an integral part of Hammerwind's shipping ports. Or at least it was until the light went out with no explanation and the family that tend to it have vanished. Sir Duncross and Father McKellen make their way to the port but cannot find a captain willing to sail them to the island, as most believe it to be cursed, and they're not willing to risk their lives and ships to make the journey. Just as they're considering swimming to the island, as they may have no other option, they are approached by Captain Gassan. He inquires if they are the monster hunters that have come to rid them of the demon on Shore Tower Island, and when they confirm that they are, he offers to sail them there. On the voyage, Sir Duncross inquires what Captain Gassan knows of the monster, as he referred to it as a demon. He states that he and his crew were hired to tend to the tower, but none of them were prepared for what they encountered. As they arrived on shore and began to move supplies onto the island, they were attacked by the monster, and it was an absolute massacre. No one but the captain survived, and he is ashamed to admit that the only reason he lives is because of his cowardice. He ran and rode off the island, abandoning his crew. That is why he has offered to take Duncross and Father McKellen, when no one else would. Captain Gassan gets as close as he can to the island, and our heroes take a rowboat through the rocky shallows the rest of the way. Upon making landfall, they find the body of a soldier from Hammerwind on the beach. His guts have been torn out, but Sir Duncross believes that it probably took him a while to die, like whatever did it wanted him to suffer. As he looks over the corpse, he finds a strange gold coin placed inside of the mouth, and there is only one reason the coin will be in his mouth: to hide it from thieves. As Duncross continues to analyse what he can about the creatures from this attack, believing it killed to send a message to stay away from the island, Father McKellen is more concerned about burying the soldier, otherwise his soul may never find rest. Duncross argues at first, but pretty quickly gives in and grabs the oars from the rowboat to give them something to dig the grave with. As our heroes scale the stone steps to the higher parts of the island, they're caught off guard as the island's meant to be uninhabited. Yet for some reason there's smoke coming out of the chimney of the lighthouse keeper's home. As they approach, they find an older man dressed in overalls chopping wood, and an older woman skinning and beheading animals for meals. They ask about why they're still here and the monster attacks that are taking place, but the man and woman merely state that they keep to themselves. It's none of their business and the island doesn't like visitors, so the duo should probably be on their way. They bid them adieu, but as they turn to leave, Sir Duncross is concerned. He tells the priest that they aren't afraid. An elderly couple that live alone on an island and are approached by armed men. And not only are they not afraid of the situation that they're in, but in fact they are the ones doing the threatening. They make their way to the lighthouse, and Father McKellen wonders if they should head back to Hammerwind to hire some more help. Duncross is offended at the thought of spending half the money on swords for hire that he is sure will be of no help anyway. Besides, if the book the father is writing to warn humanity of the evils that inhabit this world is so important, surely his God will keep them safe. Duncross and Father McKellen pass through a door with a claw mark on it and enter the lighthouse. They walk into a stench of death, and on the floor there is a dismembered hand, closed, holding 3 more of the strange gold coins that they had found previously. As they survey the room, there's a creak coming from a door that leads into the basement. Our heroes make their way down and find another Hammerwind soldier, the owner of the hand that they found upstairs, along with a bag of the same gold coins. The soldier is alive but badly injured, having lost a lot of blood and his wounds festering. Before he can explain his situation and how he got there, they are joined by the monster of Shore Tower Island. The aquatic monstrosity barges into the room and slams Duncross out of the way, and he hits the floor hard. Father McKellen steps in its way and tries to hold it back by holding his cross up to it. Although this doesn't work, it does distract the monster long enough for the soldier to stab it in the back. However, all this does is cause the creature to claw his face and eyes and drag him away up the tower. Duncross comes to and tells Father McKellen to wait here, and he's going to kill the monster. The father decides he can't sit idly by and goes to get help from the old couple they met, hoping that the man with his axe can provide Duncross with some support. But upon arriving at their home, he finds it empty. As he ventures in to look for them, he finds an altar built in worship to the creature. But before he can return to Duncross to warn him, Father McKellen is stabbed in the back. Meanwhile, Sir Duncross climbs the tower and is worried that he is just walking himself into a trap, but feels he has no choice if he wants to kill the creature. He finds it at the top of the tower, gnawing on the corpse of the soldier. As Duncross tries to sneak up on it, he accidentally stands on a creaky floorboard and alerts it to his presence. The creature turns and lunges, but Duncross is able to evade it. He even gets a hit in by stabbing it with his knife, but it seems to do little to slow the creature down. The creature tosses him around and then through a massive wooden door onto the balcony on the outside of the tower. They have a back and forth, but the creature knocks his silver sword out of his hand and begins to choke Duncross. Duncross then stabs it in the eye with one of his throwing knives, and while the creature reels, he grabs his sword and runs it completely through the creature, knocking it off the balcony in the process into the ground below. But by the time he makes his way back down the tower, the creature is gone. He sees a blood trail and believes that although it's alive, that death can't be too far away. Regardless, he needs the head of the monster to prove that the job is done, so he follows the blood trail. The trail leads to a cave by the shore. As he enters, he finds a number of skeletons left in the monster's wake. Duncross takes a torch from one of them and ventures further into the cave. As the cave leads deeper and deeper, Duncross starts to realise that this is no mere island. It's a massive temple. He finally tracks the monster to a massive main chamber where it has collapsed dead in front of a statue similar to the one that the older couple had in their home. As well as the statue, he also looks around the room and sees that there is a phenomenal amount of gold in the room too. Duncross starts to realise why the Lord of Hammerwind was so desperate to clear out the monster and gain access to the island. As he approaches the monster, it begins to transform, and as it dies, he reverts back into a human, and Duncross sees lying in front of him the old man that he had met at the house. He had been the monster all along. While his attention is diverted, the old woman then attacks him and stabs him in the back with a knife. As Duncross fights to grab the knife out of his back, the old woman tends to her dead brother. As she screams at Duncross, "What have you done?" he tells her that her brother was an abomination and he did her a favour. But that's when she gives him the full story. The man was a child of the sea god and a guardian of the island, as were his ancestors. For centuries they had an agreement with Hammerwind, but the latest ruler has not upheld the treaty and instead has sent thieves to rob them. The old woman then calls on their god Kumara, "God of the seas, grant me power so that I may thwart your enemies." She then fills a goblet in the flowing fountain coming from the statue and drinks of the water. Then she begins to transform into a creature just like her brother was. Duncross readies himself to face the new creature. He quips that he will send her to be with her brother soon enough, but it seems to be nothing but words as the fight begins. He heard that creatures born of the sea have a weakness to fire, but he attacks the creature and doesn't do any damage with his torch, instead just breaks it in two against the creature's hide. Duncross then throws the knife that he was stabbed with and gets a hit on the creature. But the creature merely pulls out the knife and drops it to the ground before grabbing Sir Duncross and launching him across the room and into a pile of gold. He thinks to himself that he has to think of a new tactic, but he ends up resorting to picking up a nearby sword and charging at the creature. The creature grabs the blade of his sword and breaks it in half with one hand, then grabs him by the cloak and stabs him with the piece of blade that it's still holding. And as he dangles, blade impaled in him, Duncross returns the favour and stabs the creature in the face with what he has left of his sword. As it's distracted, Duncross drags himself over to the dead man so that he can retrieve his silver sword from his body. He struggles to free the sword, but as the creature approaches, Duncross dislodges it and in one swift motion of the blade takes the head off of the second creature. Father McKellen has made his way down to the cave following Duncross's advice of following the trail of blood. He just hopes that the blood he's following isn't his. As the father enters the cave, he hears footsteps approaching him. He readies to defend himself, but thankfully, it's Duncross. He's approaching the father, carrying the heads of both the elderly man and the elderly woman. Father McKellen is in shock that the old couple that they had met were in fact the creatures. They prepare a wrap to carry the heads, and Duncross is ready to hand them over, collect the rewards and be done with this cursed island. They discuss their injuries as both had a harrowing time on the island. Father McKellen asks if the wound in his back is from the old woman too. He confirms that it was, and Father McKellen jokes that Sir Duncross, the mighty monster slayer, was almost thwarted by an old woman. And the issue then comes to a close with Duncross telling Father McKellen to watch his tongue, unless he wants to lose it, to which Father McKellen retorts that on second thoughts, maybe it would be best to leave that part out of his book. Hey there, Geek Collective. Did you know that Geeks Plus is also on Patreon? For as little as just $2 a month, you can also support us over on Patreon and get early access to all of our YouTube videos from Geeks Plus Comics, Geeks Plus Tabletop, and Geeks Plus Gaming, as well as a whole bunch of exclusive content specifically for our supporters over on Patreon, and early access to all the behind the scenes and ongoings with the company. So if you would like to check out all of that stuff and help support what we do here at Geeks Plus, we would greatly appreciate heading over to patreon.com/geeksplusmedia and supporting us over there. But that's all from me from now. You all have a good day, and let's get back into your video. And that was Crimson Fall, the Shore Tower. Overall, a very, very interesting fantasy book. Again, I don't think it lived up to the horror element of it in the aspect of like how we've looked at horror comics here on the channel before. But in terms of the type of comic it was, definitely that fantasy horror element of it. It's completely spot on. Very much Hellboy-esque, very Witcher-esque. If you were a fan of the Witcher series, the books, the show, the comics, the game, this is something that's definitely along that line. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really cool, really simple. It makes me want to go and read the other Crimson Fall book, the first one, just to see if we get a little bit more story about Duncross and Father McKellen, who, by the way, great characters, really great introduction. I like Duncross. I'm a sucker for that kind of gritty, anti-hero-esque character, so I absolutely adored this. Father McKellen's the great side character, the great kind of upbeat personality, good guy that's stuck teamed with the mercenary doing it for the money. A very good trope that you get in a lot of literature, but it's done very well here. I love the artwork on it. It's a bit more, and I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but it's a bit cartoony. And its design, and I don't mean that as a negative in any way, I think it's really well done. It's definitely got a good vibe to it. It gives me feelings of it's almost like artwork that I would see in like a paper comic strip, like in like the newspaper. It's got an element of that, except elevated a little bit. It's got that kind of more cartoonish look to it, but I think it definitely adds to it and gives it a charm. It's definitely not a bad thing or a negative thing. It can be seen as that when people say that, but I definitely don't mean it like that. I very much enjoyed the story and very much enjoyed what we got for it. I will be honest, like the book as well itself is really good. It's a lot smaller than I thought. Like it wasn't your typical average sized graphic novel, so it is a little bit smaller than I was expecting. And also the book story length is this part, and you do get a little bit extra at the end, which is mostly just gallery work, pin-ups, character designs, different artwork of for Crimson Fall, which is very cool. I don't know if like what you get for how much you don't get me wrong, I know printing comics is an expensive thing. I don't know if it lives up to the price I paid for it, to be completely honest. That might just be my personal opinion on it though, and that's just speaking as a product. The purchasing it, I'm like, I don't know if it was, you know, getting all the bang for your buck for that one. But the story itself, I thoroughly enjoyed. A very straightforward, very simple story. Very cool twist at the end that the old couple, you know, the man and woman, the brother and sister, are set up as worshippers of the creature, and they're actually the creature and the defenders. It does make me kind of like think there's a piece missing though, because you're almost like, does he go back and talk to the dude? Like clearly this was a setup, and you know, the Lord of Hammerwind was wanting to get the island and was wanting to get the money that was there, but he just does the job and moves on, and there's no like comeuppance for it. There's no moral quandary to it. It's not a comic that asks those sorts of questions, I don't think, whereas like I think a lot of things would. And the fact of like, you know, it's like we're killing them, but we're hired to do a job, but at the same time the job isn't totally honest and upfront, and I'm like, do we care about that and the moral quandary from it? It's like, even if we don't get that from Duncross, I would love to get that from Father McKellen, because he's surely meant to be the moral compass of the group, of the duo. So surely that would be something that he would be intrigued in, but we don't get any of that. And I get the feeling that it's not something that's going to necessarily come up. It feels more like a story that would be in an anthology, a kind of one and done sort of thing. Not that it's like drastically shorter or anything, but it's definitely got more of that vibe. It's like it's not a book and a story that's here to ask deeper questions or to push or to challenge it. It's just one here to basically see a guy get in a fight with fish monsters. Like to see Duncross kicking ass against these creatures and, you know, taking on this supernatural opponent. I'm like, the book is exactly what it says on the tin. Which, you know, if that's what you went in for, that's exactly what you get. I'd be intrigued to see if, as the stories go, if they do more of Crimson Fall, if we get more of that quandaries to it and more of those deeper questions. But overall, I think this is definitely worthwhile checking out. I think Derek Laufman did an amazing job with Crimson Fall. I think he's created a really cool world, a really interesting world. Kudos to him as the writer and artist on this. Doing one of those things for a comic is a challenge, and doing both is like practically unheard of, because it takes such a toll doing everything. So he did so much on this, so absolute credit to him for this. Great story, great characters, great artwork. Overall, it was a phenomenal comic. Not the top tier of stuff that we've looked at on the channel, but I would highly recommend checking out Crimson Fall, and I'll put the links for Derek Laufman for his website and his shop down below for you all to check out, so you can go and check out this Crimson Fall, the Shore Tower, and the previous issue as well, the previous graphic novel as well, if you're interested in checking out Sir Duncross and Father McKellen's adventures. But for now, I think that's everything for me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and spending some time with me today. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing weekend ahead. And remember, it's a good week to be a geek. Take care, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.